Morning, friends. Welcome back to As a Man Thinketh on UNASA TV. Today I want to talk about another cowardly case of agri-terrorism against a farm. This happened in Virginia. And this isn't the first time this has happened. This actually happened down in Florida back in 2019, where somebody came into the apiary. In Florida, they killed millions of bees. In Virginia, the headlines say 1 million bees, but based on my calculations, approximately 60 hives would have been about 480 to 500,000 bees, somewhere in that range, but they were poisoned nonetheless. And what's weird about this case is they didn't just poison the bees, but they put giant chains on the gate to this guy's land with a lock on it. So the one that happened in Florida back in 2019, that was West Volusia. So this happened in Stafford, Virginia at Rock Hill Honeybee Farm. And according to his Facebook post, the culprit or culprits had gone onto his farm and poisoned the bees. And they know that they were poisoned because they all just kind of come out of the hive sick and pile up on the ground. So this was an intentional directed poisoning. And just to make sure this wasn't part of the 70 to 80% honeybee population drop-off that we're already facing this year, impacting agricultural producers, they put this giant chain on the fence with a padlock, locking him out of the property. He had to cut that off to get into the property. He contacted authorities. Authorities are investigating it. There's currently a $7,500 reward because he had put out a $2,500 reward, and 2 local businesses have matched that reward. So I believe the total reward is up to $7,500. So if you know who this coward is, $7,500 is in your pocket if you can give the police information that could lead to their arrest. So the approximate value of these hives is about $20,000. And this is, this kind of does pale in comparison a little bit to the hives that have been being stolen in places like California and stuff, where they're losing hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of hives being stolen. People are stealing the hives, but we have a massive bee population die off, and now we've got people out there thinking it's a good idea to poison the bees. Based on this story, though, and similar stories, it sounds to me like this is somebody who just doesn't want the bees there. Now, there are some people who think that the honeybees are competing with native pollinators, so it wouldn't surprise me if this was some sort of advocate that was out to go after this guy. Some of these beekeepers, the one down in Florida, for example, had 20,000 hives across the state of Florida when he got attacked. This guy in Virginia has a decent amount of hives as well, and he sells those hives and provides hives to orchards and other places that need cross-pollination in order to produce food. So it was a direct attack on our food supply, if you think about it. Adiaccio, the owner, said none of these actions could be accidental. Of course not, they put a lock on his gate. This is clearly intentional, hoping to injure his operation. We've seen acts of what I call agri-terrorism against farmers a lot over the years, from cattle mutilations out in Oregon to last year I interviewed a young couple out of Vermont where somebody had gone out and slashed their hay bales to ruin their hay right before the wintertime, which would have put them in a bad situation. Luckily, people were able to support them, and they were able to get the hay supplies that they need, I believe, to make it through the wintertime. But it was an intentional attack to try and put them in a position where they'd have to sell part of their herd going into a long winter in Vermont. And of course, if you watch this channel, then you know that last month, somebody went around in Pennsylvania shooting dairy cows, and they even shot a horse in the process. So this is disturbing, especially in a year where we've lost such a large amount of our honeybee population. Honeybees are responsible for pollinating a considerable amount of agricultural crops throughout the United States. It doesn't, surprise me that some of these larger beekeepers are being attacked. And part of me wonders too, people say, well, it's a complaint from a neighbor, somebody doesn't like the bees, a neighbor doesn't like the bees. I have beehives. It's not like I'm sitting out here and there are bees flying around me. I have no idea how honeybees would be disturbing to a neighbor. It reminds me of last year when I posted that video about the 16-year-old beekeeper in Wake Forest, where the town was trying to shut down her apiary, keep them from being able to operate the apiary, told her she couldn't touch the apiary. I think the town eventually rescinded. I think these things are done intentionally to disrupt the agricultural industry, disrupt our food supply, because I don't see the argument that bees are a nuisance to neighbors. Now, maybe I could be wrong. Maybe my neighbors are off pestering the ostrich farm next door, or emu farm next door. Or maybe they're off bothering the people at Brooks Compost. I doubt many of my neighbors with flower gardens or vegetable gardens are going to complain about me having honeybees. In any case, anybody who has information on this or wants to help out, the Rock Hill Honeybee Farm is just asking people to show up to buy their honey and support their business. They don't want any GoFundMes or anything like that. You could also, if you have a lead on this case, contact the Stafford County Sheriff's Department in Virginia and inform their investigators of what you might know, and you may have a chance at earning a $7,500 reward. So let's help get the word out. Let's find these cowards.
Ancient eras and natural selection have refined and tailored pristine fibers with the resilience for today's days. Evolving beyond the last ice age, bison wool is nature's most dependable activewear. Buffalo Wool Company, 100% proven by nature, 100% American made.
Check out the Buffalo Wool Company collection at yanasatradingco.com.